I have nothing new to say. Nothing. I'm just going to tell you things you already know. That is all I'm going to do. And then I'm going to hand you off to Brian, who's going to give you all kinds of rich and wonderful and insightful and useful information. And he's going to come back to me, and I'm going to just ruin it. All right, so let's get started. You guys good? Ready? Chad, you ready? All right. This guy promised to heckle. Hold him to it. All right, what do we got here? All this happened before. VML, little company in town, started a few years ago with 3 guys. Now it's 30,000. And I want to share a little bit of some of the observations that we've picked up over 24 years of working together that I think has helped us in our path towards sustainable growth, right? Now, the first thing I do is I want to share a few things that I've observed. I'm sure these are things that you have also observed. I would be shocked if you haven't seen some of these things because I am not going to tell you anything new or anything that you don't already know. Here's one of the first things that I've observed. I see this with clients. I see this with agencies. I'm lucky enough to study human behavior, and when human behavior scales to an organization, you get organizational behavior, and good Lord, everybody wants to be a leader. And nobody wants to go first. You've seen this with your clients, haven't you? I want to be a leader. I don't want to go first. You remember Listerine breath strips? They became a pretty big business a few years ago. Yeah, Colgate-Palmolive invented that stuff like 10 years earlier. They just didn't bring it to market, right? Everybody wants to be a leader, but nobody wants to go first. It's this really interesting, predictable phenomenon that reveals itself at the scale of individuals and at the scale of organizations, right? And when you take this notion and then you build upon it, what I also observe constantly and all the time is everybody wants innovation. And nobody wants to change. And I know that you've seen this with your clients. And I lived a cursed existence for a few years where our clients were like, we want to create a division that operates like a startup. And I'm like, don't staff it with people who grew up as the children of corporate executives that got an MBA and then wanted to become a corporate executive. They don't know how to behave like a startup person. We want to behave like a startup. I'm like, no, you don't, because you want to follow all of your corporate procedures. And no startup can afford that level of corporate bureaucracy and governance and process controls, right? It's this weird kind of thing, right? Everybody wants innovation. Nobody wants to change. Last, everybody wants to grow. Everybody wants sustainable growth, and nobody wants the risk. And this is my observation, is that sustainable growth and the way we get towards it is about understanding that growth involves a paradox. And if you want sustainable growth, you have to lean into the paradox. And that means fighting some basic human instincts, right? What we can observe over and over again is all this has happened before. You may remember 4 years ago, hearing the words, in these unprecedented times. You remember hearing that? Do you remember hearing the words, in these unprecedented times? Did you have clients say the words, these unprecedented times? No, 1919, there was a pandemic. It has happened before, right? Is why I'm telling you nothing new. All this stuff happens again and again and again and again, and it's so predictable. Right? Organizations will absolutely positively optimize to what has worked for them in the past until disruption forces them to change. Organizations seek efficiency, organizations seek optimization, and they talk about wanting agility, and they talk about wanting responsiveness. And in the words of the economist Tim Horford, adaptability, agility, responsiveness, the ability to grow looks exactly like waste and inefficiency right up until the exact moment that it's needed, right? And we saw that when supply chains had been optimized for just in time and then had to be rebuilt for just in case, right? There is a paradox involved. And I would suggest that in our industry, there are at least 2 highly consequential disruptions going on right now, one of which is on everybody's mind, and the other of which ought to be on everybody's mind. And those are generative AI and customer experience, right? So now let's talk about the stuff that you're all interested in. Brian?
Yeah, well, we'll start with the first side of generative AI, and we don't have a lot of time, so you're getting the truncated version of a complicated topic. But I think I'll start with, like, how do we think about the category, right? And I would say the lion's share of conversations I have with clients tend to start with AI equaling efficiency. They typically are starting with the point of view that it's going to save us time, save us money, create more assets. Our POV, my POV, very much is a yes and. It can be efficient by all means, but generative has this ability to supercharge what we do, supercharge our creativity, supercharge how we tell stories, supercharge the experiences that we make. So I'll talk about this today in these 3 chapters: speed, contextualize where we are, deja vu all over again, like why this feels a little bit familiar, and then most importantly, how do we raise the potential of AI and of us? So speed first. For those of you that have used Midjourney or any of the image generation platforms, this long block of text is a prompt, and it's the same prompt used through the course of 1 year. So 5 releases of the platform, and that top image to the bottom, you can see really how much the model improved just in that time frame. And if you look at them side by side, I think it's a little more compelling. You know, on the left, looks like she came from The Walking Dead. But people were bragging about that, posting that crap to social at the time because it looked amazing. And a year later, 1 year later, we got much more refined. So think about like where video has been. Gen 2 launched from Runway last year. And then a few weeks ago, we got Lumiere, and we got Sora. And if you compare the videos from those, the year ago for Runway, it's very choppy. It's not quite there, like hands still coming out of people's heads, random things that are happening with there. But the models are improving. There's now models that will do sketch to 3D, where you can sketch an area, add a prompt, and come up with a gaming world, literally within the matter of a handful of seconds. And when you think about every model that you're interacting with, you should stop and consider, this is the worst version that I'm going to experience from this point forward. It's the worst that voice is ever going to sound. It's the worst that video or synthesized spokesperson is going to be. And it's not just about how fast the models are evolving, it's how fast it speeds our ability to go from idea to at least making that more tangible, right? And this doesn't mean that everything's going to be automated and we're just going to spit out commercials with a thought, but you're able to get from an idea to something that represents that. Then make it more tangible for a client, make it more tangible for them to understand what are we actually even thinking of. But there's not an easy button, at least not yet. So contextualizing the moment. So deja vu all over again. You know, in every tech leap forward, we really begin by functionally like figuring out what's possible. Like, how does this thing work? So if you go back to when the iPhone first came out, V1 of the App Store, we had amazing things like flashlight. People paid money for an app that would turn the light on your phone. It actually made quite a bit. Or if you guys remember iBeer, you would hold your phone up and it would fill with beer and you would pretend to drink it. And you're just kind of testing out playfully like what things could do. That's the moment that we're in. The paradox of right now is Gen AI still feels new, but we're already past its novelty moment. Meaning it's no longer a surprise that AI can do that. Like none of us are surprised that AI can write a song or do your homework or tell a joke or paint a picture. All of these things we kind of expect today, right? So it's not going to surprise your audience or your clients by just doing something with AI. You've got to figure out the application that actually will drive value. So what's the potential? If that's the existing moment, like where can this head? You know, so to go fully analog on you, I'd ask you to think about the last book you truly loved, that fully pulled you into the story, right? When you're reading a book like that, the pages disappear. Like you no longer see the words or the print that's there. Like your mind pictures the story. You see the characters. You're seeing what's happening. And that's where we are right now. Like we're still kind of figuring out what generative can do, kind of that awkward first stage. But the potential is mastering the medium when we can create stories, create experiences to really draw people in and immerse them through. And it's not just books, music, movies. AMC was here before, like it has the same effect. And I would say for us, for our industry, probably the most powerful parallel is gaming. And anybody that has a kid that just gets lost in the game when you're trying to have a conversation, if you're a gamer yourself, like you lose the screen, you lose the controller, and you're in. And that's the potential where we can go. And when we think about gaming, the opportunity, I think as an industry, we typically get gamification wrong. Like if I say that word, people tend to think about points and leaderboards. But the potential of it is pushing technology to its absolute limits. And AI is a big piece of that. Distribution into all channels and modifying the experience in a way that it is natively tuned to that environment, and thinking about new monetization models. Like when was the last time anybody put a quarter into a stand-up machine or bought a game in a box at the electronics store? But I think most importantly, gaming does a fantastic job of multidimensional storytelling, meaning we could all be playing the game, same game. If I'm playing solo or if I'm playing with friends, playing at different rates of speed, like we're all going to end up with the same narrative, but different experiences, right? We get different interactions. And as an agencies, we've used the phrase personalization at scale for years, but we actually now have the tools to make that true. The question is, what story do you want to tell, and how do you contextually make that relevant and powerful for them? And that fracture, apologies for the crazy images of me, but the problem that we have today is we're fractured. Like there are many different versions of you that exist with every company that you're having interactions with. So there's different versions of content you, based on what you watch on Disney Plus or Hulu or Amazon Prime. Different versions of shopper you that Walmart sees, that Amazon sees, and others. And all of them have their algorithms trained on you to try to recommend the next best product, try to keep you, show which part of the content catalog they want to bring forward. But where we're headed is we will have AI agents that help us shop, that we have more agency for, that we can decide like, where do you want to go for your summer vacation? And not just give you information or content back, but help you shop for the what types of Airbnbs fit your family size. Keep an eye on the airfares and nudge you when it's time to buy based upon a prediction of where the prices are moving. And those agents will be in our control, not theirs. And as marketers, what we'll have to consider is when do the algorithms matter for this particular sector? Because it will happen at different rates of speed for fashion and cars, for content and movies. Like we'll have to pay attention to where the algorithms matter and become part of our target audience. And we'll start thinking about not just B2B and B2C, but this concept of machine to machine or M2M, and how we're trying to market to the AI agents that are helping disrupt sort of the shop and buy category. So tomorrow's opportunity is truly unlimited. What we can create, the content, the experiences, the future of production, shopping, buying, very much unlimited. But I would say this isn't a magic thing that AI will just do on its own. For the marketers, for the makers, the creators, AI needs us as much as we need it to speed us up. Like we need the tools for sure to help do these amazing things, but it actually still takes imagination, ideas. Like we have to be original. Clients hire us to stand out, not blend in. So just using the tools that everybody has access to in the same way takes us right to the middle. And what we need to aim for is how to differentiate and how to build brands and use them in unique ways. So today's imperative, we have to get beyond those surface use cases, like the easy things, and start to look at what's actually going to drive value. Either business value, audience value, will really drive engagement to our audiences. Where do we reduce friction from the shopping path? How do we increase joy that's there? And I would leave you with the thought that it is moving fast, scary fast. So on the good news side, even if you haven't even touched a prompt window or haven't messed much with it, you're not that far behind. Because a year from now, we're going to look back and think, wow, it's amazing how quickly it's been changing. So now it's definitely the time to jump in.
Brian's so much better than me. Oh my God. Do you guys remember early today when we were talking about a soccer stadium that was designed around the fan experience? Molly and I were joking that if I were to have to take a shot of even light beer anytime I heard the word experience, there was no way I would be able to stand up here right now. I learned, thanks to my friends at the 4As earlier this year, much to my surprise, horror, and shock, that customer experience is not as high on the radar of agencies as I submit that it ought to be. Because in the same way that soccer is winning by designing a stadium around the fan experience, brands and businesses are winning when they design themselves around the customer experience. And that has profound implications for our clients and for our businesses and for our opportunity for sustained growth. I am a big dumb nerd that gets to spend a lot of time with data. We have been able to prove if you care about brands, and brands are super valuable, right? We can all agree with that? Brands are super valuable? Customer experience explains more than half of total brand value and brand equity, right? Our research pegs the number at right around 63%. Marketing, communications, storytelling, media, that's less than 40% of the brand. Customer experience is the remainder. Keeping the brand promise is even more important than making the brand promise. If you want to be in the brand business, you need to get into the customer experience business, right? Increasingly, we see research from all kinds of places that the things that clients are looking for from agencies increasingly look an awful lot like CX, branded business strategy, product design and innovation, digital platforms and commerce, end-to-end experience design, gaming and virtual worlds. Those are either clearly customer experience or kind of in this overlapping space of customer experience, right? This is something we need to be paying more attention to. We also see in the world that CX investments are growing. The most recent survey that comes out of the Duke CMO survey shows that brand budgets are falling, CX budgets are rising. CX budgets are at parity with brand building budgets. CMOs are getting on this train, and CX leaders show that CX investments are going up and up and up. Investment in CX is right now larger than investment in media services, and the 5-year projected growth rate for CX is nearly double other forms of media and advertising services based on the research, right? This is super, super interesting and important. I beg of you, I implore of you, as you're thinking about sustainable growth for yourselves and for your organizations, give thought to how you bring CX into the fold, right? Much of the work that you are most proud of, much of the work that the industry is most proud of, is often CX. You just may not be thinking about it that way, right? The best work is often accidental CX. Many organizations are like, how do I get started? I'm like, go find 3 talented people in your organizations who may feel brilliant but miscast. Let them loose, right? You need a CX maker, you need a CX thinker, and you need like a CX business person. Rewrite some of your business cases, right? Get into the CX business. You're already doing it. It's only a matter of doing it more intentionally and on purpose, right? And if I bring it back to kind of the beginning of the organization, again, I have nothing new to say. But I do want to share a couple of observations of what I think has served us well over the past 30 years. Deep in the DNA of VML, the founders, they didn't talk about us as an agency. They talked about us as a problem-solving organization that just happened to use tools and techniques drawn from marketing and advertising. And I think that ethos of being a business problem-solving organization that happens to use tools and techniques from marketing and advertising has been essential to us to be able to move forward and grow in the way that we have, right? Another thing, Scott McCormick always said, I want VML to be a fundamentally different company every 3 to 5 years. That helped us escape the optimization trap. We were never trying to perfect what we were. We were always trying to perfect the process of becoming something different and more, right? And like 30 years later, holy cow, I need to wrap my brain around what it is, right? And last, if you really want sustained growth, You have to fight the instinct to just do more of what you already do. And you have to deliberately invest in doing more than you already do, right? The path to sustained growth does require that you invest in continuous reinvention at least as heavily as you invest in continuous optimization, right? That's what we have. Thank you so much. Pretty good on
Thank you,
time.
Brian and Jason. We have just time for a couple of quick questions. Do you have any examples of AI being central to a brand's CX that you can highlight?
We're doing a lot of exploration now. I would say on two fronts. One is bringing personas, bringing the audience to life in different ways, literally to the point that you can have a conversation with your target audience. So using AI and the ability to upload all the persona information, all the research, and then use that as essentially a baseline to give people more empathy and understanding of who they're dealing with. And then we have been doing a lot of customer-facing applications in similar ways. So things like the car ownership experience. How do we make that as convenient as possible as part of getting to know the vehicle in the first place?
And the Pixel phone probably is one of the easiest ways to play around with and experience and understand AI at the center of the customer experience. Like what you can do in terms of photo manipulation. Gemini is the assistant on the phone. Like there's some really, really interesting stuff in the Pixel ecosystem if you want to spend a couple $100 and play around.
Do you have any suggestions for how agencies can encourage clients cautious to lean into that innovation you spoke about at a time, maybe not unprecedented, but a time when the pace of change is already highly accelerated?
Yeah, limit the risk for them and us. So the best way to try to get clients to jump in is to say, we're going to go this far. We're going to do a proof of concept. And we want to understand whether the technology applies correctly for your audience or for your business, and we're going to stop at this point and evaluate whether that makes sense or not, evaluate the risk, evaluate the potential harms that are there. So the more they're able to do things like, as marketers, when we were first building websites, you would follow these stage gates in the process to kind of review and approve things when we're moving through. We've kind of forgotten that because we've gotten used to the process and we run through them. Like with AI, it's important to pause and ask yourself the question. And one question should be like, should we do this? We'll have the ability to do generative voice, have generative spokespeople. Is that authentic? Is that right for your brand? Like you can ask those questions, but you have to begin to explore the technology. And the more that you can mitigate their risk and yours, by breaking it into those little project parts, I think the better.
And as a complement to that, be very deliberate around how you're managing the risk of action, but highlight and dramatize the risk of inaction, right? So when I write simple business cases with clients, I not only have return on investment, I also have risk of status quo. And because human beings are highly sensitive to loss aversion, like when you show clients the downside risk of inactivity, it actually has a bigger effect in helping them move than only showing the upside gain of taking action.
Yeah, fear is a great motivator. I would add to that, like transparency is your friend. So if you just say, we're going to use AI, and you hope your client can fill in the gaps of what that means, the more specific you can be on what APIs you're using, what's the process, like where are humans in the loop, the more you can outline that and then clarify both the data inputs and outputs, what are you exposing it to, and what are you getting in return. Transparency is 100% your friend to make sure that the lawyers and their IT department do not freak out.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.